So today we are going to talk about CSS. Well, should be CSS 3, but I will talk about every 1, 2, 3 because I'm going to pass through all the selectors, both old and new, and then some new properties. So what we're going to see today? We're going to see basic selectors, child selectors, attribute selectors, sibling selectors, then pseudo classes and both structural pseudo classes and normal pseudo classes, negation pseudo classes, pseudo elements, some new properties. The last I'll talk about about specificity of CSS selectors. Just a trick. Will not work 100% of the time, but will help you to know if the specificity is okay or no. So you need to know a bit of CSS to learn this, to know this. So first, the basic selectors. The most basic one is identifier, which is with a pound. So you give the pound and it will select the ID. Okay, nothing new. Then the same for the class. Class you put a dot and then the name, and we'll match all elements with the class, my element class, or whatever the name is. Then the last one is tag name. You can put the tag name of the element, and we'll get all elements with that match. So okay, nothing new until now. Now let's talk about direct children, which is child selector. Considering this CSS, this HTML as an example, we have an ordered list with two list items. One have another UL inside, so it's really simple. So when we do UL, child example, and li, in this case, I will match every single li inside this ID. This means this li, which is the first, this li, which is the second, and this because it's inside another li. Okay? So for child, then we use this one, and will be just the first children of the element. So when I do this CSS, then I will just get the li and this li. This one here will not get because it's not the first child of the element, the first element. So then we have attribute selectors. This one is cool. You get someone knows the name of these brackets? Yeah.
Square brackets.
Square brackets. Okay. So when you get and put an attribute name inside the square brackets, like for example require, you will target every single element or anything that have that attribute, independent of the value. That doesn't matter the value. Then we have the attribute equals something, equals a value. So you will target something that have the value like you wrote. So for example, if there is a single name without spaces, you can add like this without any quotes or something. And when you have it with space, you put quotes, and we'll match this any element that had title. Then we have with children, I think that's the name. This is would get any attribute which has whatever you added as value separated by spaces. So for example, I'm using here like an attribute like keywords, and at the end I have a list of keywords inside that element. If that element contains some keyword at some points separated by spaces, then we will get it. Then we have attribute pipe equals value. With pipe, you can get anything that starts with whatever you wrote as the value, and it will be immediately followed by a dash. So for example, we normally use that for language attributes or something. So you can make, for example, an HTML tag with lang equals English US. Then you just need to put en, because there is en dash US, en dash UK, and other options. Then we have these that on circumference, I don't know the name. This will get anything on the element that the attribute starts with. So, for example, you want to make a different styling for everything that starts with HTTP. So you get and put this, and then you can style each element that goes to another website or something. The same goes for the dollar symbol. The dollar symbol is for what ends with. So you can target, for example, you have a page with a lot of PDF files. You want to make the link a little prettier. You get this, you do the $ equals PDF, and you do like you put a background image with a PDF icon or something to make it cooler. Then we have it with asterisk. Asterisk is an attribute that will get anything that contains that. It's a substring. So if I put an href equals com, anything that have com, like communication, .com, or whatever, will be tagged. Then, now symbol selectors, we have adjacent symbols. It's used with plus. What it does, it targets, when, for example, in this example, 81 plus p. That means that every single p paragraph that comes after a header one will be tagged. So in this example, this one will be matched. This one will be not, because this one isn't after an H1. So if you want to target something that is followed by but not directly followed by, you can use a general symbol, which is the tilde. So you can use header 1, tilde p, and the first p that follows the H1, the first one doesn't need to be the after it, you can have other tags as it will be matched. Then pseudo classes. Pseudo classes are represented by one semicolon. So first child will trigger the first child of the element or selector or ID or something that you have made. So in this case, I selected the first lead of this in order list. The same goes for the last child. So the last child is the same thing, just this last one. So it will get the last child, the last list. What this is good for? When you are doing like a list of a navigation or something, and you're using border bottom or border top to make a dash of each one, and the last one don't need to have it. Oh, there's the first one. So you use this declaration after the normal declaration to overwrite the selector you did first. Then we have structural pseudo classes. These ones are cool because it's the nth child and nth last child. What it does, you can get, for example, you do ul, li, and nth child 1. The index here is not like JavaScript, is not zero index, is one index based. So when you do, you give an integer like 1, I will get the first matched li, which is the first child. It's like instead of first child, the last child is a joker child or something. But it doesn't mean that you have to use like 1, 2, 3. You can use keywords for that. So for this you can use odd for all the odd things, like 1, 3, 5, uneven for 2, 4, etc. Or you can use n. In this case, n will be like a loop. So for example, when I try to get this one, I mean it's 3n plus 3. What does this mean? 3 plus multiply 0 plus 3. So I'll get the third element. Then I'll add 1 to the n and we'll be looping until find every single list. So it will be like the third, the sixth, the ninth, and so on. You can use negative numbers, so it will be decreasing as well. Then we have the same thing, but this time for of type. So it's of type and last of type, which is the same thing like first child, the last child. When is last starts from the one, it's the last. When is the normal one, the one starts from the first one that is is selected. So in this case, it's 3 plus multiplied by 0 plus 2. So it will be 2, 5, 7, and so on. So, but in this case, I use it not a very good example because it's just a list. But this one, I get the end of the type. So for example, I have a blog post which have lots of P's of paragraphs. On middle of them, I have like images or links or something between the P's, not inside the P's. So when I get these ones, I'll get the P, end of type, whatever. So I'll get the second one, the fifth P, the seventh P, which is paragraph, without listing the other tags as the middle. And when it's the last, it starts from the last. Then we have first of type and last of type. First of type is the first appearance of that selector. So when I want in a post, for example, I want the director children, which is P, and the first P, just the first P. When I get that, I could use, for example, first child if the P was, I knew the first element would be a P. So when I don't know, for example, the post have an image sometimes doesn't have, so I use first of type. The same thing for last of type. When, for example, you want to make learn more on the last anchor, so you use post a last of type anchor. Then we have only child. Only child we use when, like the name says, the only child. So this selector will only triggers when we have just one P inside the news class. When have two, will not work anymore. Then we have the only of type. Only of type is when we have just one of this type inside of a selector. So the image, for example, on this post, when there's just one image on the post, then I'll apply the CSS for that card. If there are two images, then this will not work. Then the last one for the structural is empty. Empty will check if the box, the selector you made is empty or not. Empty, I mean no tags, no text, no anything. So for example, I have a sidebar with a lot of boxes, and a couple of them comes from a third party. So I don't know if will be filled or not. So I use empty, and then I use like display none or something. So it will not show an empty thing. Then we have negation, which is not. Not is very nice because while the support isn't so big, jQuery has a polyfill for that, so you can use it without problems on the jQuery selector. It will work anyway. So I want to get all the inputs that are not of the attribute type, which value is submit. So we are now using a lot of elements of child selectors, attribute selectors, sorry. So you can use any selector inside here, and it will check if it's not, and if it's not, it will apply your CSS. Then pseudo elements. Pseudo elements are different because they are with 2 semicolons. But since the CSS 2.1, there are some, like everyone knows, before and after. They are used with 1. So for all the older browsers, you have to use with 1. If you want to be standard complete, you use 2. One thing is that if the browser don't support the one with the 2, and you can't, for example, in this case, let me just make an example here. For example, let's change this. Just a second for you to understand. When you are using a selector that the browser doesn't support, if you do like 81, 2 dots, and first letter, and then you do and the same selector 81 with 1 semicolon also, first letter. If one of them are invalid, all the statements are invalid. So in this case, this will not work. If you want to be standards compliant, you have to make 2 selectors, which will be 1 for that and 1 for that, to work on older browsers and the new. So what's first line is? First line is will match the first line of a block, of an inline block, a table, caption, a table cell. What this means, if you have a div, for example, with display block, and you have a lot of text inside, when you want to get the first letter or first line of it, it will get. So you can, for example, like a lot of book chapters do, the first letter of the first paragraph has a bigger letter. So you can style accordingly, making something. Then we have, like I said, before and after. Everyone uses that. At least doesn't mean they know how to use it, but the most used case is for clear fix, which is when you have a lot of floated images or floated elements. You use that hack, which is some kind of hack, to clear the context and make the flow of the page goes back again. Because when you're floating, it's out of the flow. So, for example, a div with floated images inside, the div will not have the height of the image. It will be like the height of an line. So you make that. But what does it do? It, before and after, creates an element, a pseudo element, which will not be rendered. Like, I can't right click and inspect, it's not possible, but with Chrome you can. It will appear here like review p dots and after, and then you can make, for example, when you go to the GitHub pages or something that has a flag here on the left side or the right side saying fork me or something, that normally is made with after on the body. So the element that is after the body, it's that one which is a div, which the content is empty, but it has a background image, which is that flag. Then we have properties. Then we have the properties, but the properties have some issues because we have vendor prefixes for that. You probably have seen them on CSSs or Twitter Bootstrap or Foundation or anything. What they are? They are to enable a property that is not stable yet. So, for example, There's a WebKit for Chrome and Safari, Moz for Mozilla, which is Firefox, or all Gecko-based browsers, MS for IE, O for Opera, and then for the last one you use border radius, for example in this case, with the standard name without any vendor. Why that? Not now, because today all the browsers are shipping the vendor prefix with the standard prefix, like acting the same. But before, the standard one would do something on Chrome, and the vendor prefixed one would do another thing. So you would, if you added the WebKit, for example, in the Chrome case, as after the standard one, it will not render like you expected on some versions of Chrome. So you have to add not HTML, but not O, but normally we use WebKit, Moz, and the standard one, which is to enable cool things of CSS3. So first one, the examples are very weird, but it's just to make the separation of the colors. So for example, the first one is that CSS implemented multiple declarations for a lot of properties. We have, you can have 1, 2, or n declarations separated by comma. So it's really nice because you have now you have multiple background images, and then since you have multiple images, you have multiple positions, or box shadow when you want a lot of shadows. So in this case, I'm doing a shadow red outside and one inside, and the border is just to make the separation. So next, the first one is border radius, which we normally use like a lot, which is you give a radius in pixel or percentage or something, and it will make the borders of your element rounded. Pretty simple. And if you want to make a circle, a complete circle, you make the widget and half of the same size, and you put border radius 50%, and will make a circle. So it's kind of cool. This one is the short one for all the borders. But if you want to make different ones, like this one is rounded, this one is not, so you can add for values like a border or anything. That will be starting with the upper right corner. So the next one is Resized. This one is awesome for forms, because you can add, for example, on a text area, resize vertical, non, horizontal, or both. What does it mean? It means that I can now drag the form or something or anything that you have applied, and you can change it. So it's good when you are, for example, in an email or something, or a contact form, that the guy who made the form leave this with at least vertical, so you can start writing, and then okay, it's a big font, so I can't read anything. I have to scroll up and down, so I can just make that. Okay, this will break the layout if the guy isn't prepared, but at least is usability. Then we have background gradient. Now we can make gradient images without making 1 pixel wide GIF or JPEG that will be repeated. So this will act, the linear gradient will act like a background image. So you can't have a gradient within a background image. Or you can if you make multiple declarations with comma. So first I say to where I going, so to bottom, so start from top to bottom. Then I can pass multiple colors and the percentage of where it goes. So it will start with this color, which is blue, on the upper top. Then on the middle of it, on 50%, it will change it to this color. And then to the 51, so from 50% to 51 will be this color, which is this little line here. And then from the 51 onwards, it will be this color. So you can like this, or you can change it to left. So it will start with blue here and light blue here. And I've added a link which is to gradient generator, because this one is the standard one, the one that will be used from now onwards. But there are a lot of different implementations and anything. So there's the ultimate CSS gradient generator, which in the end, when you select a color, for example, you have a gradient here, this is the CSS you have to put. Because it's the background one, just the plain color for the browsers that don't support. Then you have the first one for Mozilla, then the WebKit, which is the old version, then the other version for WebKit, then for Opera, then Microsoft, then the normal one, and then the filter for old IEs. So it's a lot of things. So don't try to understand much. Normally use a ultimate gradient select generator or something. Just try to learn the standard one. So next one, background size. This one is nice, especially for when you are using, for example, making a website for Retina display or something, because you will add a background. Okay, nothing different, but then you have the background size which you can stretch the image. Normally you will have to do image, make it flow and stretch. Now you can make the background image stretching. What does this mean with the mobile side? I said you can use, for example, a background with an image which is for Retina display, and then you use background size to be on the real size. So for example, you have an icon which on the layout is 50 per 50, but your image is 100 for 100. So you use background size to be 50 per 50, and will be the visual will be like it was for a Retina display, because the image is bigger and the image has more pixels, so it's clear. Then we have text shadow. Simple. You give the X, the Y, how much it will blur, and the color. So for example, 10, 10, 10. I made the text always starts from the top upper top left. So it will be like 10 to the right, 10 to bottom. And we will spread. It will blur from 4 to 10 pixels. If the third blur were 0, it will be the same as the text, just without the blur. So it will be like this when you want to make. So it will be like that, like a shadow, normal shadow, just clear. The same for negative, so you can make it negative for the Y also. So it will, you can play with using the inspector. So the next one, box shadow, is the same thing as text, but for boxes, like div or something. So, but this one has a difference. It has one more value to add. So the first is the X. First one actually is you can use or not, is optional, inset. When you add inset, means it's the inside of the box, not outside. In this case I'm using outside, so I'm not using inset. Then I give the X, the Y, the same thing. how much to blur. So it will be this here, it's 10 pixels, and the spread will be 50 pixels, 50 pixels. So it will spread for 50 pixels and then blur. So you can just play with it also. Then text stroke. This one, you put text stroke, the width of the stroke, and the color. Simple. So it will make like a border for the text. So you can play with it. So it will be like that. So it will be pretty simple. In this case, since I'm using the stable version of Chrome, it still needs the vendor prefix one. So it won't work if I just put this thing here like that. It will not work. We'll say it's not implemented. Then we have opacity. Opacity is just to make it the opacity changes. It goes from 0 to 1. And if you want for IE, you have to use filter, which is from 0 to 100. So the bad part of this is that anything inside the element you added, all children will be with this opacity also. You can't, like, for example, change the opacity of the thing inside. It will not work if you put opacity 1. It will not apply. Then the cool one, transform. This one have a lot of possibilities. So I just use this example. You can use translate, which can receive X and Y, or just an X, and then it will imply that Y is 0. What this means? It means that will be translated 100 pixels to the left, to the right. So the element will be shifted 100 pixels to the right. Rotate, I give it the degree, so it will run like that. We will start to turn it. And then skew X, which is this part here. Who used Photoshop knows what the skew is, but let me give an example here. When I increase the skew, it will turn even more. So sometimes it will be bad to read, but anyways. The same with translate, I'm changing it to the position of it, I'm shifting it. The same with the rotation. So I can turn it like everything. And this is the link if you want to see all the possibilities. Have matrix, so you can give a matrix of numbers to create a different thing. Then we have transition, which is you give to it what you will be transitioning. In this case, I'm using the keyword all. But if, for example, in this case, I'm just shifting the background when I'm hovering. So when I do that, it will transition from red to green in 2 seconds using the ease animation, which can be ease, can be swing, I think, bounce, and other things. And here's the link for all the possibilities. One thing is, you see that when I'm hovering, it changes. When I take the mouse, it changes back. If you apply the transition only to the hover, when you hover, it will make the transition, and when you take out, it will shift automatically, because the normal state of it is not having any transition. Then we have animation, which is a lot cool. I made a simple one just for example, like PowerPoint-like. And what is the animation? You have which is an attribute like media, like import. You do like keyframes, then you give the name of you want, can be anything, even a code if you want. Then inside of it, you do like would be keyframes for like Flash. So you can use keywords like from to, which is 0% to 100%. You can use like percentages instead of the keywords, and it will just make the presentation here. Then you give the animation, you do the same name of it, how much it will take to do it. And if you want to be infinite, like this one, you give infinite. If not, it will run just once. I had to be infinite because it will not, or it will run before I arrive here. So then we have animations, which is explaining about the animations. And this is like a framework, which is animate.css. The guy did a lot of animations just to be added, so you can like flash and will flash, bouncing. So it's some stock animations that you can use. Just add the class and will be applied to the element. So it's kind of cool. Then box sizing. Box sizing is one hell of a property, because this is what changes a lot of things. So when you give a box sizing border box, it will be the default model of the box model. It's the width that you give is equal to the content. So anything that is a content will be, for example, in this case, 500. So if I give a padding for it and give a border, this one here is bigger than 50%, than 50,000. If you see here and compute it, the content of it is 5,000. So when you give the border box property for it, it will change to the width is equal to the content plus the padding plus the border. So this one here, it's 5,000. So you can see like the line is really equal here. So this changes a lot of layout problems when the client asks, oh, I want this box to be 10 pixels width and 3 pixels of padding. Then you add 3 pixels padding, it will become 16, not 10 anymore, because it's the width of the content. So this one is really nice. For that one, you can use the asterisk, which is to apply to everything, because this works from IE8 to upper and on other browsers since always. Then just to finish, the specificity of the selectors is just a quick rule. It doesn't mean it will 100% work, but will be, you can calculate more or less how to make which selector will proceed. Because a lot of people think that it will be parsed from up to down CSS, and everything that is on the left will overwrite whatever is on top. Not always. So we have 4 numbers to represent. So it will be AEL is always 0 unless there is a style, inline style, the attribute style, which will normally overwrite anything on CSS. Or when you use important also you have to put here, because we will always overwrite anything. Then the second number is the ID, so it's the sum of the IDs. So you have like two IDs on the same selector, you put 2. C is for attribute selectors, so the square brackets. Pseudo classes like first line or first letter, and like here, for example. Then you add all the sum here. And then the last one, which counts for elements. So you put div, table, p, paragraph, or pseudo elements like before and after, first line, etc. So it will be like that. And our universal selector, which is the asterisk, is always 0 to anything. So anything can overwrite that. So for example, just some examples. One ID and one element you put like that. And then you have H2 with title, which is a class, and an element. So this one. So if these two were selecting the same thing, this case not, but this one will overwrite the next one, because it has more number to the left. So in this example, for example, which is selecting the same thing. The sidebar, which is an ID, selecting an element which has the ID first. So it will be 2 IDs and 1 number. So this number is bigger than this one, because this one is just selecting a pseudo element. So this one, while it's last, will not override the first one. Then the conclusion is you should learn CSS to the fullest, because while not all the properties and while not all the selectors are still supported, when it will be quite handy. So, and then some links, which some are on scramble on the presentations, but some are here. This one is bonus, which is Flexbox. Is a at least for me, it's kind of hard to understand, but it's another way, like we have box sizing. Flexbox changes a lot of things. Like, for example, you can make, you don't need a hack anymore to make 2 divs one by another to be the same height. You can use Flexbox to make them all the same height. So it's kind of cool. So